Welcome to another Bandology interview. Bandology is a Canadian nonprofit dedicated to more music for more kids via education, collaboration, and community.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lucas Redwood, and I am the Manager of Music and Learning with Bandology. I'm here today with Mark Kelso. How are you doing today, Mark?
I'm great, Lucas. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. Mark is a musician and also a professor at the Humber College in the music department. And I was actually I studied under Mark in my first year of drums at Humber, and I'm looking forward to going back in the fall. So Mark, can we start off, describe a little bit about yourself and your background in music?
Okay, well, I've been playing drums now, I think, for about 45 years, so quite a long time. I've done probably every kind of gig imaginable from, circus, Jewish weddings, Italian weddings, musical theater, recording sessions, live, in a multiple array of styles, jazz, small group, big band, jazz fusion, pop, funk, soul, R&B, Celtic, you name it. If there was a gig on with drums, I'll do it. I love music so much, so I just want that variety. And I always thought that versatility was something that just enabled me to work more than maybe someone who was a specialist in one style. So I've done that. I've played on maybe over 350 recordings. I'm happy to say I'm still being asked to do recordings, which is great. I've been nominated twice for a Juno with my own bands, the Chronicles of Fezziwig Project, and my band, the Jazz Exiles. I've got 4 Junos as a sideman on other artists that I've worked with, and I'm a singer, I'm a songwriter, a producer, kind of multitasker. It seems to be the way of a video editor. Now that's a new skill I've added this year during COVID. I try to keep my fingers in as many fires as possible, so that I stay creative and I keep working.
Wow, that's awesome, Mark. And you were also a student at Humber as well in the past, right?
I was. That's correct. Yes, you've done your homework. 40 years ago, this year, September this year, I would have started in 1981. So I did 1981, 82, 83.
Wow.
That era.
And were there any difficulties once you graduated in your career? And if so, how did you overcome those difficulties?
Well, it's there's a couple of things. I was just talking about this the other day to a student because he was asking me about what's life in music like, and it's difficult for me to say right now because I've established a career. I've built up a litany of performers that I work with. People know me. I have a good reputation. I've put out records. So I've been kind of as they say, branding myself for years. That seems to be the terminology people like to use now. I never thought about it when I was your age, but when I left school, I went straight into working with a guy who was this guy Paul Christopher, who was kind of like a funk Latin jazzy kind of singer, right? It was kind of very different and eclectic from all the top 40 bands. We weren't doing any top 40. Maybe one song was top 40. Everything else was like album cuts, So I was working with him, and then I started going to Las Vegas and down to Atlantic City and working. And back then, of course, you would work 6 nights a week. And I remember working at places in clubs in Yorkville. I remember, doing 7 nights there and then running across the street to Myers Deli and playing the late shift, starting at 1:30 to 3:30, and then trying to get up to go to school, right? It was like, it was rough, but I was getting as much playing experience as I could get, and I was taking every single gig, and every single gig probably led to meeting other people and other musicians and spreading my name around and getting known as a guy who could do lots of things. But so I wouldn't say that there was a lot of I can't say that there was a lot of times where I wasn't without work. As I said, I started getting into the jazz scene, the pop scene, the studio scene, some theater. Like I would take every single gig, the wedding scene. For me, I could always, my justification was I can make more money and have more enjoyment doing one gig than I can working a week at McDonald's for minimum wage. You know, if I'm on my instrument, you know, nowadays I see people who are like, I don't want to do that gig, or nah, it's not my thing. I just want to do this. And that's fine. If you want to be an artist, just understand that being an artist is a very, very difficult path. And it's very difficult to make money. For me, I just wanted to play music, so I took every crazy gig. I've done crazy gigs, you know, if I think about it. But I got to be, the one thing that was also different was the cost of living. And I think that's the biggest difference. I mean, work has changed. The environment has changed. There's less club work, per se. I mean, the theater's still there. The session thing is very different now, because before it was like there was a select bunch of people who did a lot of the work. And if you were lucky enough to get into that scene, you would be called and do that. And I was fortunate enough to be in there with a lot of people recording. But now this is the new world, you know, having a place in my basement and people just email me stuff and I do it out of my house. So almost every drummer I know has a home setup. So everybody's competing for a smaller piece of the pie. That's different. But also, as I said a minute ago, the cost of living, you know, was different. When I was on my own, you know, I was paying like $500 in 1982 for a 2-bedroom apartment, and then I got a bachelor apartment for $300. I think I bought my first car for $300. So the cost, you know, Humber, when I was a student, I think it was like $600 a year.
Wow.
I mean, it's 40 years ago, so I could pay that off and not have any debt. And I was able to sustain that by, you know, save money by not having high expenses. Now, of course, like apartments, it's crazy, you know, expensive. And if you want to buy a car, it's really expensive. Gas is, you know, I remember gas being like 50 cents a liter, right? Now it's like $1.40 the other day. So that is problematic. And the issue how it ties in is that, you know, if I was working a club and I might make $100, you know, playing a gig at night, well, now I might still make $100 40 years later. There hasn't been an increase or a wage increase, you know, in all that time. You know, as my friend Phil Dwyer likes to say, man, music's great. You can make tens of dollars.
That's great.
Right? That's one of the funniest quotes I've ever heard, you know. And then I think it was Kim Mitchell, the great Canadian pop star, who coined the phrase, and I love this quote too. I was just saying it the other day. The dilemma of the Canadian rock musician is that you can't afford a car, but you're too famous to take the subway. Right? And I was like, oh, it's funny but sad. You know, so the music industry has always been a crapshoot and a gamble. I remember reading a book by Burt Corral called Drumming Men. And I remember reading about Baby Dodds, Warren Baby Dodds, kind of the godfather of jazz drumming, back in the 1920s. And in his thing, you know, I have this romantic fashion that was fantastic back then, working and gigging and all this stuff that was happening in New York and New Orleans. It's like, wow. But there he is in the book going, oh man, drummers nowadays, you got to be able to do a lot of things. You got to be really versatile. It's like, you got to know your burlesque beats. I'm like, I don't even know what a burlesque beat is. You got to do your vaudeville thing. You got to have all your traps together. You know, you got to be able to play some jazz. You got to know your second line. You got to be able to do marching parade. And I was thinking, man, it's kind of the same thing that we still talk about. You got to be able to do a lot of things. The more versatile you are, the more tricks you have in your pocket, the more you're able to go, I can do that. Can you do that? Yeah, I can do that. Can you sing? Yeah, I can sing. Hey, can you take video and shoot video? I can shoot video. You want me to edit it? I can edit it as well. Yeah. You know, I'm learning how to mix. So everybody, you know, that's why the Humber program is great with all that technology part in the studio. You get to learn things that we never learned. We had to learn them all on our own. But you guys are being trained by great people like Andrew Mullen and Peter Cook and all the guys who are in there going, this is important stuff to live. So, you know, if you are learning that stuff, then it's really valuable for you. The main issue now, though, I feel is that it's almost too much information. When I was your age, I had about 60 years of music. You know, if I think about the 80s, for me, not barring classical music, which is 300 years old or so, going back, maybe 60 years from 1980 to the early 20s. I only had about 60 years of music to kind of learn and check out. Now, you have 100 years. So while I grew up through the next 40 years of music, you're starting going, okay, I got 100 years of music to listen to. It's like, whoa. Think about 100 years from now, they're going to go, man, I got 200 years of music to check out. Where do I start? What do I choose? I think in the future it's going to be crazy difficult for people to decide what they want to do, right? And it's not, I don't think that's something that anybody thinks about. They go, oh, why don't you know this Coltrane solo? Why don't you know this Elvin thing? It's like, dude, there's like thousands and thousands of drummers I'm listening to. You can't possibly encapsulate everybody. So I think you pick what you like and what you want to learn and go with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just crazy how things have shifted, like with streaming and all that. And it's so cool to see all the different resources now that are at our disposal.
Yeah. So you probably think about it like a young person, whereas I think about it like an older person, because it's very different for me. Streaming, I'm not a fan of because it's just too much. It's too much music. How am I ever going to find something that, searching by myself? You might say, hey, Mark, check this out. And that's the only way I'll know it. You know what I mean? Whereas when I was, young, all the guys, everybody would buy the one record. This Weather Report record would come out and all the musicians would have it. And there was this community built around one record. I mean, everybody go, have you heard the new record? Yeah, Jocko on Earth. Oh, yeah, it's fantastic. And everybody would be going, this is amazing, and talking about it, and then everybody would get that record. Oh, and then, Michael Jackson Thriller comes out and everybody gets it. Or, there were popular records because I guess the record companies, they had a system in place for releasing. Now there's like 1,000 releases a day on iTunes. And it's all over the place. So it's very difficult to find things that you're interested in because you have to search so much. Now I guess maybe on the streaming services they have, if you like this band, you might like this band, and it might lead you to something similar, But I'm always looking for weird things that are different, that not everybody is listening to, because I think that gives me new information, So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of sort of the changing dynamic as well, one of the big things I think that's been tough for musicians right now is the pandemic, obviously. So my next question for you is, how have you sort of adapted? And you've sort of hit on a bit of that, but as a musician, is there any specific things that you've done to kind of adapt to the pandemic?
Yeah, I think COVID for me really forced me to up my tech game. As you can see here, I've got my whole kit mic'd up, but I've also got these other stands which are for cameras. And so, but I think ultimately, aside from my tech game going up, I needed somewhere to put my creativity, and that was in making videos. I never really I might have done something on my phone using that and just gone, here's a little clip, but with Facebook and Instagram and things like that, I started getting the multi-camera set up, and I taught myself iMovie, the Apple iMovie, and then when I couldn't have enough videos in there, I started teaching myself Final Cut Pro. And then I got some lessons on mixing so I could get my drums sounding better and my voice sounding better. And I started off with drum videos first, and then I started doing maybe just do a little vocal thing. And now I've been doing covering 80s pop tunes. I did Broken Wings by Mr. Mister. I just did In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel. So I did a couple of a police thing, Wrapped Around Your Finger. I just picked tunes just to goof around, shoot some video on drums, and then I started performing as a singer because I think one of your questions is the hidden talents, and I think singing is a not so hidden talent. But I did used to have my own band, and I fronted my own band back in the early 90s, going back quite a while, and thinking about being a singer. So I've always sang. And I think it makes any drummer a better musician if they learn how to sing. But I think I didn't just sit around and get stale and go, I'm not going to do anything. I tried to keep motivating myself to stay creative. I think that's one of the big things. And I was talking to the students at the end of the year just said, try not to lose your motivation when there's no gigs and you're not playing and you're not hanging out with your friends. It's a big issue. It's a very difficult thing to overcome. But try not to lose your motivation. Keep yourself interested in something. So I come down here and I wrote a whole bunch of tunes. I wrote at the end of the school year. I wrote 10 songs for the Jazz Exiles. We're going to record them in October.
Wow.
But I play all the demos. So when I'm writing, I'm making the demos. And I said I've been learning more about tech and videos. So I've been funneling my creativity into something different, but it's still musically related.
That's awesome. I guess one of my last questions for you is, why is music education important to you?
Oh man, I've been talking about this forever. Like as I said when I started off, music education changed my life. First of all, when I got into band class in grade 7 and I started playing drums in the junior high school band, that set my whole future in course. When I was 13 years old, I was like, I'm doing this. And I started working as hard as I could. And then I got to a high school, which had a great music program at Westview Centennial down in Jane Finch. And Colin Barrett, he was with Colin's a teacher in Humber, his bass player. I've known him since I was like 13. He was 12, I was 13. We've been playing together for over 40 years.
Wow.
So I had a great bass player with me my whole life, making me a better player. And then when I got to college, it was like, man, I was really seriously committed to all this. And I just kept meeting more and more people. And I knew it was something I wanted to do. So now when I'm in the teaching thing, you learn more about it. When I teach and I hang around young people, you're around people who are inspirational. All the young kids, they're like-minded. They're really into music. They're keen. They're positive. They're really happening. They're good players. They're hard workers. So I'm around that environment as a 58-year-old guy going, yeah, I like this energy. So the energy's great to be out, be hanging. I teach this kid stuff, but it's a two-way street. The students are always showing me stuff or teaching me stuff or saying, Mark, check this out. I'm, oh, man, I never heard that. So there's a reciprocal thing that happens with the information. I give information, but I also get stuff back. So for me, it's great two ways. I get to pass on my experience, my knowledge, and then I get things back from the teachers or from the students. But what I would say is, in the last, say 10 years or so, there's been scientific data now to back up the importance of music education and how the brain functions with regards to music. You look at people, say, who have Alzheimer's disease, or dementia, and they can't remember their own name or where they live or anything, and yet you put a piano in front of them, they go, oh, okay, and they start playing a tune that they knew, right? Or they start singing a song, they know the words to an old song, and you're like, how is that even possible, right? And I think they discovered there's a place in your brain that only fires up when you're playing a musical instrument. And it's not even like doing different artistic things like painting or other things. It's solely developed in music, and it's like a really old core part of your brain. So there is something in us, because you think back about history, there would have been sound from the voice, and then people would have started making sounds with their bodies, and eventually drums. So, then it's all voice, chanting, drumming has been with humankind from the dawn of time. It's really old, and it's really, really deep inside of our psyche. So there's that. And then there's the element that it's so good for your motor skills and your brain development, right? They say anybody who plays a musical instrument will end up having better brain function. Like they say you get smarter. Now I don't know. I don't know if I'm smarter, but there are certain things that doing music teaches you, like reading music, playing music, associative listening skills. It builds so many things, right? Like of your 5 senses, I think playing a musical instrument can develop like 4 of them. Feel, playing your instrument, a voice, seeing and hearing, all these things develop your brain skills. So if you're playing a musical instrument from a young age, your brain is developing at in a different way. I don't know if at a different rate, but at a different way than if you're not doing that. I mean, there's sports and everything like that for coordination, but music, there's something in the brain that happens, as I said, that only happens when you play a musical instrument. So I think it's great. Even if you don't continue on to play a musical instrument professionally, there's something that it does when you're learning and how your brain develops. That's really important. You know, you look at a lot of different communities and cultures around the world. You know, the Asian community, there's a lot of piano players and violin players. You look at the Cuban community, a lot of drummers, a lot of dancing and singing. You know, this stuff, it just, it also brings a lot of joy to the person playing. You know, frustration and pain from hard work. But, you know, that teaches you perseverance, right? But there's a joy that music can give you that's, for me anyway, that's unlike anything else, you know. You know, I joke to my wife and I say, you know, drums is the longest relationship I've been in. So, you know, she doesn't think it's that funny, of course. But, yeah, I truly believe that playing a musical instrument and the importance of musical education in school is crucial in development of your brain and interaction and social skills and networking, and there's so many positives about being in a music class. And it takes your mind away from math, English, geography, history, all the heavy things, you know? This is something where you can look at and go, this is fun. I don't know, I mean, maybe kids go in and go, history's fun, math's fun. I never looked at it that way. To me, music was always fun, hard work, but there was a fun element to it when you all got together. And there's a real community. There's a real community sense, right? When everyone plays together to create a song or a sound, there's something happens that connects everybody. That might not happen, you know, in other classes. You know, math was always doing your own thing. English, you know, I'm writing my own thing. Music was interactive, and I think that's a big part of why I love it so much. You know, and in the drum community, you already know there's an international drum community, right? There's an international drum community. You can go anywhere in the world, not speak the other language, and guy will tap something and say, drums? Yeah, oh, yeah. And you can play with someone and communicate with them and have fun without even needing to know a language. It you know, playing drums surpasses all that stuff. It bypasses it and brings you and connects you to other people around the world instantly. You know, so I'm a big proponent of music education. I think it's one of the most important things anywhere for to be in schools. And it's a drag that you know, in Canada it got really decimated. You know, during the Mike Harris government, they really started killing high school music programs. It really hurt. They thought this is a waste of time. We need more accountants or something. You know, no. Music education is one of the courses where you really also get to experiment with creativity and being creative, right? You can be creative in other areas, but for me, growing up, you know, theater arts, acting, and music were the two classes where I could really unleash my inner creativity and do something that I never got to do really in any other class. And I think that's important. I think the world needs more creative people because, you know, we're getting into dangerous territory with global warming and things like that, you know. And, you know, you need creative people to think creatively to help fix these things.
Absolutely. You know? Yeah, for sure. 100%. Thank you so much for that answer. Really, yeah. We like to end the interviews off with a little fun thing we like to call Fast Five. So okay. Are you ready for these quick questions here? All right, here we go. Question 1. What's your favorite movie soundtrack?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. My favorite soundtrack? Oh man. Oh gosh, I like a lot of the movies that Lalo Schifrin did the soundtrack for, early 70s cop things. You know, he did Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon, you know, which is where I first learned his name. I think he did some of the Clint Eastwood Dirty Harry ones. So I would say anything maybe with Lalo Schifrin. There's probably something that I'm forgetting, but off of the Fast Five, I'm just gonna knock it off.
That's great. That's cool. Instrument you wish you played?
Oh, piano.
Yeah.
I'm kicking myself for not taking piano more seriously as a student when I was in Humber, because that's what I mainly compose on now, and I'm so slow at it. When I have to play something for my videos, for instance, I have to play it one chord at a time. Hit record, play one bar on that chord. It's like, man, if I had really worked at it, this would be so much easier. So I wish I played piano.
Yeah. How about hidden talent?
Well, I mean, as I said, singing is not a so hidden talent, but I'm going to say video editing now. That is my new hidden talent that I have somehow figured out to do, and I think it's related to drumming because I can time up the shots and the end and all the movements and the cuts really perfectly. It's not like they're coming in randomly. I know if I'm ahead or behind because I can see it doesn't line up with the cymbal crash. It's like, nope, late. Oh, no, that didn't pop on the downbeat. So my drumming skills have helped me become a really tight editor.
That's awesome. How about your dream vacation spot?
Ooh, I've traveled around the world quite a lot, but there's some places I would love to go still. Rio in Brazil would be awesome. I would love to see all the Parthenon and the ancient ruins in Greece, and for somewhere just really nice, I think Tahiti would be kind of cool. Just right out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the Pacific, Tahiti is always, I always see pictures of Tahiti with the huts on the water, like,
Oh yeah.
what's that be like? It'd be great. I've heard Costa Rica's really nice as well, so any of those places.
The Caribbean. I think I have family in Barbados, and I'm dying to get out there again.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. No kidding.
And last but not least, your favorite concert you attended or your favorite song?
Oh, that's easy. My favorite concert was probably, I think it's 1980 or 1981. I saw Earth, Wind, and Fire at Maple Leaf Gardens. Now, Maple Leaf Gardens is still there, but it's no longer a concert venue. But, I was in college, and I had missed Gino Vanelli's Brother to Brother one that had just happened, and everybody was talking about it, and I was kicking myself. So when Earth, Wind, and Fire came, I think it was their I Am record came out, and I went to see it, and it was a spectacle, a groove, giant funk, soul spectacle. It was my first experience seeing like 14,000 people simultaneously up dancing within the first 5 minutes of the concert. Sound was great. The band, they had all these sparkly costumes. Everybody was dancing. It was a giant party. And I formed the Groove Merchants totally as a template from Earth, Wind, and Fire. From seeing that, the visual was so impactful for me that I never forgot the energy and the music and how fantastically fun it was just to see that. And I met Freddie White at a club in LA years later. I was like, "You're Freddie White at Earth, Wind, and Fire. The best concert I ever saw, man, when you guys played in Toronto." And it was like, "Oh, thank you." It was like, it was electrifying. It was electrifying. I'll never forget it. If I close my eyes, I can still see where I was sitting up in the nosebleeds on the left-hand side, looking down at the stage. And they had a Canadian magician, a famous guy named Doug Henning, who passed away a few years ago. He did a whole bunch of magic tricks on their show. So, like Verdine, when he took his bass solo, he went into this cone or something, disappeared, and then came out somewhere else. People were disappearing from smoke. It was like as I say, it was like a spectacle, but it was so heavy, man. The grooves were so deep. I just, and the good, the best part is, I didn't have my damn phone there videotaping it, So I created a memory for myself from watching the thing, and it's a really, really sentimental, deep level memory that impacted me for the rest of my life, and now if I had that video, maybe it'd be like, oh, it's not as good as I remember. I mean, there's always that fear, right?
Yeah.
Because the more you know, the more you understand, oh, they rushed there, or they dragged, not saying that they did that. But I'm happy to have the memory because that's what I remember and how my recollection of it. And anyone I know who was at that concert, everybody says the same thing. So Earth, Wind & Fire, 1980, 81, around that era.
That's awesome that you had such a cool memory from that. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a million concerts for sure, but that one would be my go-to first choice. Because I never experienced anything ever like it in my life again. That amount of energy and just joy and just awesomeness. Because their tunes are killer. The band was killer. They had everything: the horn section, the singers, the grooves, the bass playing, the costumes, the dancing. It had everything I think I could ever have wanted in a concert. You know?
Yeah, that's so cool. All right, well, thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate you taking the time, sharing a bit about your background in music and what you've been up to during this time.
Oh, well, Lucas, thank you so much. My pleasure being here. It's great to see you again. Great to chat. And I wish you continued success with Bandology. I hope the whole thing gets bigger and bigger and you guys grow and just, keep helping to promote this music education that you're doing. I think it's a great thing you're doing. I'm really... it's great to see you're so young and you're involved in something so positive. I mean, I wasn't doing anything like that when I was your age. So, it's great that you're doing it. So you're fighting the good fight for music education. So I applaud you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. All right, take care.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us. If you like what you heard, you can learn more about our organization at bandology.ca, which features information about music education, advocacy and research, and our Play a Gig and Bandcamp programs. Follow us on social media for more videos, performance, and interviews on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.